Does Bitcoin hit 100K this month?
The general trend with most normcore people is they, buy high and sell low.
We have Elon, who has officially announced the co-head
of the DOGE department.
Elon is glued to Trump's hip at Mar-a-Lago, sitting in on every single meeting. He slashed and burned X, claims he's going to do the same with the federal government.
How does the conflict of interest work with like SpaceX and anything related to Department of Defense?
It's not actually cabinet. It's not actually inside the government.
I think so far what's happening is the tech bros are not taking cabinet positions.
They're taking ambassadorships.
You never want to be on the board. You want to be the board observer.
They're behaving exactly like venture capitalists. Elon is basically a super VC.
They're all getting internships.
Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of More or Less. And Brit, you're blonde. You're drinking a nice Chardonnay. Like, what is going on?
Wait, what? What is happening?
In LA.
Is that actually wine?
This is the work week.
It's actually fruit juice. I went blonde a couple days ago because I'm in the I don't give a fuck phase of my life. And I was like, I've never really tried something this dramatic. And frankly, it's an A/B test. It's an A/B test. I want to know, do blondes really have more fun? Do people take me as seriously? Like, what are the implications? I already got hit on once today at the airport on my way to LA. I don't know. Was it because I'm blonde? I don't know. Just saying.
Trouble.
And I'm not drinking wine. This is some fruit juice thing that a girlfriend I'm staying with down here in LA, Shiza Shahid from Our Place, if anyone knows the brand, is hosting me. So there you go.
Love, tell her blender is life-changing.
Is that our blender?
Yes, our 2-year-old makes himself smoothies.
She's the best host.
We love the blender.
Our Place is the number one site for all of your hosting, dinnerware, pots and pans, everything you need in your kitchen. So that's my plug for her today, for hosting me.
Yeah, no, buy the blender. We bought 3 containers for it. So, okay, Brit's in LA. Sam's in the pool house. Sam, any update from your end? I'm actually wearing this sweatshirt in honor of you. You guys can't see, but I'm wearing my Harvard sweatshirt because Sam delivered an awesome interview yesterday of Larry Summers about the future of higher education. I kept thinking I would drop out of the Zoom and do work, and I just couldn't because it was so interesting.
That's how you know on these live Zooms how they're going, is you just watch the number of participants. And if it's going down, you're screwed. But as long as it stays flat or goes up, you're in a good business. And that one, it was good. Several hundred people really stuck it out through. We'll package it. We'll put it on the internet.
We're going to want some takeaways shortly, but yeah.
Well, my big news is, yesterday I got a terrible overnight stomach bug.
Aww.
And I had to do this thing with Larry. And I basically spent the entire day on conference calls lying in bed, but I had to do this. So I found the IV people. Have you guys ever done the IV drip?
Oh, this is so LA of you.
Yeah, we love the IV drip.
Yeah, it's
incredible.
It's apparently very dangerous.
Why?
Wait, why is it dangerous?
Because you never know what's in the actual IV.
Vitamins.
There's no testing. There's no standardization. It's really dangerous.
In downtown San Mateo, yes.
I believe all that, but when you just Google IV drip and then pick the first result off of Google and go get one in downtown San Mateo, let me tell you, shit rocks. It was great. Will do again.
That's like Sam's Golden Gate colonoscopy, but that's a story for another time.
I love Golden Gate colonoscopy. Those are my guys.
I've been there. That place is crazy.
It's amazing. They give you real drugs.
We should do it on the same day. Yeah.
Jess I was so excited because Jess got her first colonoscopy, and I was excited because I love the drugs at Golden Gate endoscopy or whatever center. And she got no drugs. And I was like, this is why I even get a colonoscopy.
Well, they wore up. I woke up and I was me. I wasn't high on anything. And Sam had twice sold that I should just take the day, go see a movie, enjoy it.
It's full out anesthesia.
It's the stuff that what's his name OD'd on.
No, they don't use ketamine, Sam.
Shocker. Stanford has figured out how to titrate this stuff.
They use actual anesthesia
No,
drugs.
they use propofol, which is what that rock star died taking.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good.
Speaking of viewership tanking, that's happening right now. I can tell.
Yeah, let's move on. Mhm.
So Sam's plug of the week is IV drip. Dave, what's your plug of the week?
The Lingo continuous glucose monitor.
Oh, the Lingo.
Yeah, I mean, I think you recommended it on this very pod.
I did.
I have done the CGM thing years and years and years ago, but started up again, and it's always fascinating to see
Dave, how is this changing your lifestyle right now?
Well, it's only been a few days, but I think it's interesting to see what foods create spikes in your glucose, which ones don't. It's always interesting.
Do you have any data from it? Because I did it for like 2 weeks, and my answer was it's fine. I had no spikies. I was like, yeah, I get the idea.
I've had no real spikies yet, so we'll see.
So that's the problem with the product is I feel what I want is like a performance version, right? Which is like tells you, because the only thing I could get it to move was if I went on a really long run, you like start tanking and then your body would recover it back up.
Yep.
But figuring out, I feel like there's some athletic adaptation that would be cool, but for people who don't have diabetes, I'm less convinced.
I hope this company doesn't have a subscription business model because it seems like the churn rate's probably really high after
it does.
like a month.
You do subscribe. But the other thing that I learned, and this was at the DOC conference a couple weeks ago, is there's a couple of apps. One of them is called Levels, which a lot of people have talked about for many years being the best CGM app. But there's another one called NutriSense, and they combine it. It's somewhat like what you're talking about, Sam, where you get the readout, but there's also a nutritionist in the app that is reading it for you and telling you how to optimize, which I think that is actually what I need because I'm not sure what the spikes are doing and, how to optimize it. I seem to be in the normal range at all times. So
it's like you have a CGM, it's like, you're fine. And you're like, thanks.
Unsubscribe.
Great.
Perhaps, okay, Jess.
Yes.
More interesting is at this DOC conference, I also learned about a new test called the suPAR test, SUPAR.
I love tests. Yes.
It's an inflammatory marker blood test developed out of Denmark. I just got the results back, and it tells me that I'm aging at the perfect rate. So I'm aging at a rate of 1. So I'm actually 44.
Wait, I haven't checked my results.
Which is good. And I don't have inflammatory problems. Brit, you should have your results.
I do. I just got the email.
And you're probably going to be like aging at a less rate than me.
Oh my God, let's read them live. No.
Yeah.
How old's blonde Brit?
Okay, do you think I'm more or less suPAR than Dave?
You're clearly younger than Dave.
Well, even if we were the same age, do you think I'd be more?
Your birthday's coming up too. Couple weeks.
Yeah, I know.
Couple weeks. I think this blonde thing is related to that.
It is.
Brit is turning 25.
Yeah.
I got carded the other day too. Things are going well for me, guys. Oh, I just got it.
Big reveal. It's like a gender reveal. Go.
Oh, my aging rate?
Yeah,
Yes.
aging rate.
Aging rate, 0.86.
Yours is going to be less than 1, isn't it?
My chronological age is 38, but my biological age, 33. There you go.
So annoying.
Sam's literally buying me one of these right now so I can take it and he can compare it.
No, I got to try an aging rate. I have, the only thing I have is my DEXA scan, which says I'm 28, even though I'm 41. So I'm proud of that. I think I can make it go lower. But
All right, you need the suPAR test, Sam.
No complexes here in Silicon Valley on age. None at all. Okay, guys. Well, I don't have anything to add at the moment. Although actually I do have one thing to add. I just would like to make a public service announcement that I also like feedback about this pod. So let me explain. I feel like all week long, Dave, Brett, and Sam are forwarding emails they get from like happy viewers and constructive criticism. And then last week, cookies showed up.
Cookies?
Cookies showed up for Sam from a very satisfied listener.
Did he lick them?
that would be funny.
This is not fair. I want cookies.
Well, I was going to say close listeners of the pod will know.
I understand why Sam got the cookies, but I
Yes.
want them too.
So I just want to put it out into the universe that, again, nothing that is going to violate any ethics things because I am a journalist. So don't send me like fancy things, but I'm here for all of it. So I just like everyone to know that. Okay, guys, it's been like a very busy week.
Are
I
you a
feel like
journalist when you're on this pod, or are you not a journalist on this pod?
always. Unfortunately, I can't turn it off as some people
You can't.
will.
That's not how it works.
I can turn it off, but people still see me as me. So
All right then.
I feel like I'm going to list a couple of lanes we could go down and hopefully we agree. So it has been another big week in AI. The information has led the charge on reporting about how, in particular, OpenAI, but also Google now are reaching slowdowns in the rate of training their models.
Shocker. Who would have possibly guessed that would happen?
We had a really detailed story about this, very specifically what sort of quantifying the gains they're seeing now versus before, what they're doing about it was a huge story for us, actually. It was amazing to me, even in a really heavy news cycle.
Yeah, this is like surprise.
Outside of tech.
Everybody's intuition was this, and now finally we have the data to prove it.
Yeah. And then we have another piece this morning about Google. Reuters and Bloomberg many days later reported the same thing, which they don't like to do unless it's really important. So that gives you a state. But so we've got where we are with AI. Brit, you've pointed out there's some interesting things going on with advertising and some of these AI search engines and models that we're starting to see, which is probably a topic we have not covered as much. But we really should, because guys, we probably have also undercovered the potential breakup of Google. I know we've talked about it, but like,
That's not going to happen with Trump as president.
no.
Yeah, that's a game over question now.
Well, I think, and I've actually started to do some actual reporting on this topic, and my strong hunch is a nice juicy settlement coming. Nothing imminent, but they're still waiting for courts to come back.
That sounds right, because I can just imagine Trump giving the press conference on that about the juicy settlement from Google.
Such a settlement.
The biggest settlement in history.
The settlement is huge.
It's huge. No one but I could have made this settlement.
You know what, guys? You know who's going to negotiate the settlement?
Elon
Musk is going to negotiate the settlement. And
God.
Isn't he friends with Sergey? How's that going to work?
Oh God.
No, Elon and Larry were quite close for some time and have had a tremendous falling out.
Right. Oh yeah.
I'm glad one of us keeps up with all of this.
It is my job.
Keep up with the tea.
I have so much tea, Dave Morin.
Jessica's tea corner.
It is funny how all of a sudden this weird configuration of the current landscape, all this inside baseball relationship Silicon Valley stuff is now at like the center of global geopolitics. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, it is kind of strange. Yeah.
Totally.
Let's go there. Let's not over-index on this topic, but yes, we have Elon, who has officially announced the co-head.
Pretty strange.
With Vivek Ramaswamy of the Department
of the DOGE department.
DOGE.
So ridiculous.
Department of Government Efficiency, following his Dogecoin, blah,
and
blah,
simultaneously,
blah, blah.
Dogecoin is doing like $1 billion in trading today, which is like unbelievable. I don't know. I didn't look at the actual change in volume, but it's like pretty dramatic.
No, well, it's doing 28 billion in trading, but it's doing an insane amount of trading. But Bitcoin, Solana ripping.
Yes, and we should talk about, Sam, were you going to talk about how Doge was a satirical point to begin with? Is that the point you were about to make?
You said it was his Dogecoin. It's like he is a late adopter of Dogecoin. But yes, he certainly loves the meme. Who doesn't love a good meme? There's this whole half joke, half serious thing about how like the most amusing outcome is usually the one that happens in the world. Instead of Occam's razor is the simplest. It's like just the most amusing outcome is what happens. And I have to say,
that's the Hitchhiker's Guide. That's the Hitchhiker's Guide philosophy.
It seems like that's the era we're living in. It is that we're in a most amusing era for sure. And I feel like until it's all real and we see what the outcomes of it, who knows? But it is very amusing.
Well, here and then I don't want to go too deep politics here, but
3 memes, right? We've got Doge, we have Maha, and MAGA now, right? So it's like the meme constituency.
So Elon's taken over this post he created on government efficiency / the federal bureaucracy. instantly there's speculation. This obviously did he cut Twitter by 44% or 50%? I don't know what he did. He slashed and burned X, and claims he's going to do the same with the federal government. Listeners of the pod should know that our very informed sources don't think he will do the same to the federal government, because the Constitution, as well as many other federal statutes, are very specific about how the federal budget works.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think will happen? I know that's speculative, but what should people be looking out for here?
I think the U.S. government should be worried that they're going to lose all their advertisers.
And then it should sue those advertisers.
Yeah. How does the conflict of interest work with like SpaceX and all NASA? Just or like not NASA, but like anything related to Department of Defense. Like,
we may be in the era of what's known as no conflict, no interest.
Oh, it's a bad place to be.
Like, I don't know that we have laws around this because we've never had this happen before. Like,
well, that seems to be the thing that's happening here, which is that they've created a job title, which is basically like a external senior advisor title. It seems like to me, it's not actually cabinet. It's not actually inside the government. It's more of this is a senior advisor. I don't know what actually, I'm not a beltway
I think that's
expert,
right, Dave. Yeah.
But, I'm like an armchair expert at this at best. And that seems like what's going on here is that they've kind of invented a title that's fancy and funny. But really what's happening is we've got a, senior advisor from industry that, is advising the president. And that's basically seems to be what is happening, brass tacks.
I should point people interested in this topic, which is probably all of you. The New York Times had a very good story by Teddy Schleifer about, sort of how, Elon is glued to Trump's hip at Mar-a-Lago, sitting in on every single meeting, and has uncle status according to his grandchildren. And it's fascinating and like very important to understand. I think the day after the election, I was getting a lot of texts from people saying, okay, what's going to happen now that the tech bros are going to take over government and so on and so forth. And I think so far what's happening is the tech bros are not like taking cabinet positions, but
they're taking ambassadorships.
They're advising on the position.
Doing jobs that don't matter.
They're the closest to advisors, right? Like they're in the air, and time will tell how that plays out.
But that's also a very tech way to go about it, Jess. They're basically behaving.
Yeah, you never want to be on the board. You want to be the board observer.
Yeah, right? I was going to say they're behaving exactly like venture capitalists. And since Elon is basically a super VC.
Well, especially because they would have to sell their control.
They're all getting internships.
Well,
the interesting move, which I think people haven't fully come to yet, which I always was very fascinated by, is when some Wall Street guys have ended up, I think, in cabinet level positions, you have to sell everything.
Yeah, totally.
But this is a very important caveat. You don't have to pay taxes. Like, you can defer out your taxes on the sale.
Wait, defer or not pay? Those are different things.
Well, this is important to look into, but there is something where like you basically get, and we should look into this if readers care, but there's this hack where some Goldman Sachs guys got cabinet positions, and they're like, well, the reason they did that, or like at some level of seniority of the government, is because you are forced to sell, but you don't have to pay taxes on the sale. And so it's actually an incredible diversification strategy if you are in the 0.00001% that can pull that off. So I'm not even sure the tech bros realize this yet, but there probably is some level of strategy, if you're being totally draconian about it, where it actually makes sense to get a very senior position for tax-free diversification.
So do you just hope does that start on like the day of the inauguration? And then you just like hope that all the markets keep climbing until like January 20th?
Well, I know. Or you just like, if it's just instead of having, there are these funds where you can take your shares of a company and you contribute shares rather than than cash. So you can get free diversification into a basket of goods. It's kind of like that, but on massive steroids, right? So if you have like a massive appreciation in some equity and you want to diversify out of it, this is like the ultimate government strategy to do it.
So I'm sure the tech bros know this because the tech bros like nothing more than tax avoidance. So or strategery. I shouldn't say avoidance, strategery.
What are you talking about, Jess? Tech bros like to create value, not care about tax.
Some of them, Dave. Some of them.
Well, maybe we know different ones, Dave, but But anyway, so yes, I think phase as of a week, these guys are very, very whispering in the ear of Trump. I think, and I have to go and talk on CNBC about this tomorrow, so maybe you guys can give me some talking points. But I was asked the question of, in general, what tech CEOs and CEOs think of Trump, and it, at first I was like, well, they're really, cheering potential deregulation. Obviously, the market is up so strongly, but as my reporting's continued, it's sort of led to like they're concerned about a lot of contradictions in Trump's policy. So, for example, how China will actually shake out. You look at a company like Apple that just can't be, for Apple does tremendous amount of business, makes its products, so on and so forth in China. Even, Elon needs raw materials from China. So I think the mood I'm hearing, but I'm interested in what you guys are hearing, is more of like, okay, yes, there's some very specific deregulatory things we can be excited about, but also a lot of concern about how the tariffs and other potentially contradictory policy moves will play out. Seem reasonable?
Yeah, look, I think everyone, I spoke to my very wise trainer this morning about this, and he's like, it is what it is. Let's see how it plays. It'll be interesting, right? I think that's kind of the mood I've heard from a lot of people is, it's going to be it's shaking up the chessboard for sure in a whole bunch of ways. And I think everyone has confidence that Trump's ego is very tied up in the economy going up, which, that alignment is probably good if you're in private business broadly. But, I think it's kind of a wait and see. It's clearly a shakeup of the whole kit and caboodle. But I think at this point, everyone, at least in my world, I've heard a lot of people saying, and I know that these groups exist. I've heard a lot of people saying, that, in their communities are very depressed, or their communities are this or that. And, again, it's all based on your filter bubble and who you talk to. But the people I talk to are kind of like accepted as what happened, excited the market is up, and kind of in a meh, let's see what happens type mood.
And the cryptos. Someone sends me another Bitcoin stock price chart.
Oh, not that your husband's been doing that every hour.
Well, I was using it in the generic sense, but yeah.
I got your point there, Jess.
We're very happy that crypto is ripping. And I do think, it kind of shows there was real regulatory overhang where people were worried about kind of what that was going to look like. And, we'll see.
Sam, does Bitcoin hit 100K this month?
Ooh.
It might. I mean, that's within random walk at this point. I mean, the only thing that I've heard contrary to that is that, look, I think there will be a lot of sell pressure into
no question.
Around 100K, just because a lot of people have been up and down and they say that's a good number and I'm out. And so I don't know. I mean, like many of us on this call, I'm like a long-term crypto holder and will continue to be, and have no intentions of selling or anything. But I think the 100K thing is kind of an emotional thing more than a practical thing.
Yeah, a lot of stock prices going around.
My favorite email that I've received this week was, I won't reveal who, but Sam and I got an email from someone that we were involved in a little crypto fund together with, saying, note to self, always listen to Sam and Dave.
See, I don't get emails like that either. What's wrong?
You got an email this week, Jess. I copied you on one.
Oh, yeah, you did, actually. I forgot. Thanks, Brit.
We were trying to convince this person to keep all the money in the cryptos about a year ago. Yeah.
So here's a question for you, venture capitalists. Do now those VCs who kind of pulled away from crypto come plunging in again?
No, I think it's probably pretty pragmatic.
I think some LPs are going to come back in, though.
Yeah.
And thus VCs.
I'm interested in what Sam has to say, but
the general trend with most normcore people is they, buy high and sell low. So
Sam and I buy low and sell high, yeah.
Sam, you're not supposed to, are you dissing your LPs or VCs?
Well, our LPs are great, but most, I mean, like, look, there's been some funny memes obviously passing around about everyone coming off the AI train and back into the Bitcoin crypto. I actually think there is something else going on though, which maybe is a little more intellectual, which is people need a good narrative, right, at any given time.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm really into this, everything's narrative at this point, mostly because I've been reading Harari's kids' books to our oldest son, which are great. And if you think about I always love reading the intellectual kids'
what? They're
books.
better than what he was reading before, Dave.
The intellectual kids' books are great because if you think about it, what they do is they take this ideas that they're trying to write for like an intellectual audience that are hundreds of pages, and they're like, we're going to do the kids version, and the kids version's better than the adult version because they have to simplify it for kids. It's great.
It's ChatGPT, explain it like I'm 5.
So reading it, and we talk a lot about like the importance of storytelling and narratives. And I actually think what has gone on with the Trump thing is I think it's going to take some wind out of the AI story, because the story is going to be about infrastructure and America and like all that type of stuff. And so you see, like, it's funny, Jess, your article where you talk about, kind of the flattening of AI curves in terms of training. It's like, how well timed is that? It's like, just as that train is starting to slow down, and I'm sure I'm seeing a lot of pitches from AI startups that really aren't where they need to be and overraised and whatever. And they're kind of retrenching. That's kind of the meme of the moment. But it also, a lot of people are just kind of moving on to the next narrative, which is Trump in office. What does that mean for the economy? Infrastructure, blah, blah.
Everyone invest in defense startups.
Totally.
Blah, blah,
and
blah.
so it's going to be, I do think that it's not, crypto might be a little bit of that story. I think crypto is much more global and like a different story that I think is very powerful, obviously. But it is really interesting because I do think we're seeing a narrative shift right now in terms of what the normcore Silicon Valley tech audience is focused on. And it is moving off of AI everything into US government, Trump, defense, etc.
What are the drivers of that narrative shift? I mean, is that A, society, B, Silicon Valley because of the nature of capital and venture capital and having to attract? Is it the press? I mean, I'm a little tired of it, to be honest.
Of narrative shifts? You want to just stick with the same narratives for the future?
No. I'm just, tired's the wrong word, but like you can see these inflection points, and it's more complicated than that. Because take crypto, right? You often have a couple things going on. You have a hype cycle going on, and then in many cases, you've like these fundamental marches forward that are interesting but less sort of eye grabby. But it is amazing. I don't know. Sometimes, like I've been reporting on this for 20 years. And so like throughout AI, I mean, I'm seeing, and the information is probably seen as one of the more cynical publications covering AI, which I think is completely unfair because
I would call it realistic, not cynical.
Factual, but I am sort of like, you can feel it coming and you can feel the turn coming, and then you see the turn, and then I don't know.
We've been talking about it here for a year, right?
I think look, this is the interesting thing I worry. So I really poo-poo what I'll call momentum investors. I won't name names. There's a lot of people out there that clearly the strategy is, as venture capitalists, whatever they're doing, they don't really start from first principles. They see what's moving, and then whatever is moving, they just double down. It's like the classic see a line, go to the front, get out in front and lead it type thing. And I find doing that extremely cynical. But there is, if you're just in the game for money making,
it's just one strategy. It's one type of investor, right?
It's a pretty good strategy, honestly. And if you're purely looking at it from like a money making perspective, and like those people are very, very sensitive to like what's the next trend. Great, I'm gonna go out and lead in front of it and like stack up whatever that is, and it's fine. You kind of move on. I don't know. I find it tiring and not interesting. I'm much more interested in first principles, but it is I think it is worth acknowledging that it's a valid strategy. Like it's not all.
Do you think
wrong.
They're doing that at seed and growth stages, or are you just talking about momentum of the company itself and then piling on?
Well, that too, but I also mean like thematically, like, it's the same people who get out in front of like crypto, and then they get out in front of AI,
right.
and they get out in front of defense, and it's
like a new way. But those are the people that are on Twitter all day.
Well, those people, some of them are pretty good at what they do. The problem with doing it at seed is that the lead time from when you invest to the realization is so long that you might have gotten in front of the parade, but that doesn't mean you made any money. Whereas if you do it in the public markets, it's great, right?
Sam, I think most of the time you don't make any money. And I think that's actually what's most dangerous about these cycles, particularly for seed investors, right? It's something Slow is, Offline is, several others very disciplined about, right? Like you cannot get into these cycles and pay high prices and throw a bunch of checks around when things are behaving like this.
That's certainly how I operate, but I also entertain the fact that there are very good investors who take the other approach of just being like, fine, I'm going to be the leader of whatever the movement is at the moment. And you're right, it is hard to get liquidity and exits from it, but every once in a while they catch the right thing and it does actually work. It's not. I don't think it's I think it's easy to be cynical about that strategy, but it's kind of one of those things where you just get tired of it more than anything else, is my view.
So Brit, like what is your thinking on AI investing these days? Like, are you looking for the company that's like got like the AI, like Arcade, right? Like, so cool, sort of building 3D products, but with an AI bent.
I mean, thesis area wise, like infrastructure and application, but only if there's like in the application layer, like a legit proprietary moat or like really vertically integrated use of AI. There's also a lot of unique business models. Like we've been really interested recently in how AI is, I think Sam too, in a different way, like the explosion of SMBs and creators and entrepreneurs, and then all the tooling and automation that those people need for different things is really interesting. And so like leveraging AI to build new markets is really unique for us. AI within different components of B2B2C and healthcare and marketing and super verticalized channels. So I think like, you know, we have certain segments of the market, but I will agree that like it's already feeling like people are coming to the table and there's like an outdated feeling to some of the pitches. It's like there was a wave of like some of the ground lean ideas. There's still good ideas coming to market, but I feel like a lot of funds have taken positions on the chessboard and have kind of like cemented their strategy, and now they're sort of going deeper into those thesis areas.
You know, I made an investment this week. I should pitch my investment this week that was announced.
You have to.
Oh,
What'd you make? Well, you made an investment? What did you invest in?
Then you can change your LinkedIn profile to reporter and investor.
Conflict of interest?
Well, I did change to add more, co-host of More or Less to the pod.
Oh, nice.
Oversight.
Yes, nice.
Oversight. So me specifically, Lesson Media has about 6 or 7 angel investments in news businesses. The latest of which announced this week, Nick Carlson, who is the editor-in-chief of Business Insider, is starting a new company with Henry Blodgett.
Whoa.
As his co-founder.
That's interesting.
Business Insider 2.0.
No, but it's called Dynamo.
Business Outsider.
Business Outsider. It is video. And so I don't even know, like I need to
Business
actually
Outsider
read
video.
the press release to know what I can say or not say. But basically Nick in running that major newsroom for a number of years, including their video business, has a really good insight into how to make high quality, really informative videos on a whole range of subjects. And so that's what their kind of newsroom and studio is going to be.
Do you guys remember when video was a bubble?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, Nick is very self-aware. So there's a great profile in the Times of Nick and Dynamo written by Ben Mullen, and it's the subhead is "Just don't call it a pivot to video." So everyone's self-aware. But what's really great, First Mark is in the round, and a lot of great angels, and I think Nick is doing something very intelligent, which he's not going out and raising $10 gazillion. He's doing a very, very kind of targeted raise and very focused on ramping up and cash flow and scaling the business. So it's always fun when I lure a journalist to the entrepreneur side. So
it's so cool when companies actually make money, huh, Jess?
Yeah, no, it's very cool. But anyway, I'm excited to see what they do. And I have more coming. So
that's awesome.
Okay. Anything else happening in venture? How does I found myself wondering if the sort of equities roaring on the Trump bump somehow provides another tailwind to I mean, obviously not in the short term, and that's really much more the exit market, but I don't know.
Well, but I do think it brings in more I feel like LPs in the market, especially high net worth individuals or family offices.
Yeah, people just feel richer.
Were skittish and now they feel richer. So they're probably going, and like, I do think they're going to take more positions.
Also, their ratios are back
in venture and sort of risk on assets because Trump will probably, make that a lot easier.
It's not just Trump. I mean, we're also shifting to a deflationary period. The policy. Yeah, I mean, Sam's right.
Larry would disagree.
The Fed is currently in a deflationary position. Who knows? They might change their tune. The numbers that came out today were not great. But I think overall, the general sentiment is that the last 2 years, 3 years in the private markets, we've talked about it many times, have been pretty awful, right? The liquidity environment is terrible. You can't sell companies. There's no M&A. There's barely any IPOs. It's just like hasn't been a great time to be doing private equity and venture business. And so the hope is back, right? That might come roaring back. And, I think there's a bunch of reasons for that, but I think the new regime will be one of them. And so I think that's generally something happening. I do think there's one shoe still to drop, which I saw a few articles today discussing it, which is, will Lena Khan remain at the FTC? And, who knows?
I think I also have been fixated on this, but someone told me I shouldn't be fixated on it because basically she won't be chair and she may stay in her seat, but then she'll kind of like term out. So that's the vibe I'm hearing.
I think that if that stays that unclear, then, venture will be in a precarious place. But if that becomes very clear, then you will have a different outcome.
Well, and don't you think that most companies will be ramping up imminent? I mean,
I don't know.
Given what is happening in the public markets, like the balance sheets are just like everything's
But the problem, I think the big difference, Brit, of this time is like I think companies have learned that most of these tack-on type things and certainly acqui-hires just aren't worth it, right? It's like better to double down on your core business. You can build whatever you want yourself.
I don't know.
Depends what you're tacking on, Sam.
I mean, here's an interesting thing that, again, I actually did some reporting this week. Microsoft is one of the only tech stocks to be underperforming as of yesterday. I don't know, maybe it is overperforming as of today, to which I apologize. But and I is saying, oh, that's because they're spending so much in AI and investors are skeptical. And this person said, no, it's because of Activision. It was just a bad deal. So, it's interesting because in our tiny bubble in Silicon Valley and AI and, where Sam Altman is the coolest cat in the clubs, Microsoft is seen as like having made a lot of good strategic moves, but like public investors are being like, that acquisition, not so good. So I think there could be a lot of headwinds. Also, and this gets more to the CEO sentiment. I mean, I think the sentiment is that the Trump administration will be very uneven in how they approach this, right? And that for companies who he is more antagonistic to, they shouldn't expect, free, whatever, clear skies or any of that stuff, right? I mean, so I think it's, and then the public, I really push my finance team on this because for as long as I've covered tech, the IPO window has opened and closed at some sort of rhythm that then was a good predictor of IPO activity, but it's usually correlated just to what the market is doing. The market has to be up a certain amount for a certain period, and then the IPO window opens. And this time is just breaking that playbook. That's just not happening. And I think there are a lot of reasons that are much more structural in the markets that aren't going away. So will companies, we had a big story about Databricks doing another secondary this week, like Databricks, like Chime, go out next year? I mean, maybe, probably, but like, I just don't see a sea change.
We'll see. I mean, like, look, I also am obviously very skeptical of the IPO window reopening, largely because I just think that the idea of small public companies don't make sense, right? Sub $10 billion public companies. The interesting question is, like, you look at Reddit just ripping, right? Which it is.
Life 360 has doubled since IPO in June, just saying.
The classic re-IPO, but yes.
It was an IPO, Sam.
Just say, like, even if you just look at the numbers, it was an IPO and the stock has almost doubled in 6
there
months.
You go.
Yeah, no,
Say
that's
something
true.
nice, Sam.
So Brit, that's a good point. What's happened there? So Reddit is user growth. That's why they're ripping. What's happening at Life 360?
I mean, just like solid quarterly metrics, great business model, introduction of advertising, which might segue us to our next category, our topic today. Just like solid performance, honestly. And the markets seem to really love it. I mean, it's 30% consistent, year-over-year growth and, cash flow positive, like a bunch of different metrics that are really hitting the board.
Yeah. Well, I just, in crypto, there's this whole idea of there's like Bitcoin season and then there's altcoin season. And what happens in general, the cycle is Bitcoin runs up a bunch, right? And people get excited about that. And they start diversifying into altcoins, and then the altcoins run up a bunch. And then the cycle continues back to Bitcoin and blah, 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 blah. And I think like you have to think about the traditional equities market the same way to some degree, which is you watch Bitcoin is the Facebook, the Meta, the Google, the Amazon, whatever, the biggest companies in the world. They are the kind of gold standards. They run up. And then there is an effect, a wealth effect, where people just have more money and they're looking to diversify somewhere. So they start buying Reddit stock, right? Or things like that. So if it's very possible, the reason the IPO window would reopen, and I think it will reopen for the biggest of the private companies, would be that diversification wealth effect strategy. Whereas if the market runs enough and people are feeling rich, they're going to want to diversify into new public equities. But on the flip side, I think it'll be, the story is still the same, which is to the extent that Bitcoin / Meta / Google can just keep running and there's no upper bound to it, why not buy them and just call it a day? I think will be the real tension.
I think it's going to be, that's the question to watch. Brit, do you want to talk about advertising? Because we should probably spend more time talking about business models on this podcast, getting paid.
This is kind of an internet business model broader topic, which is for so long, a lot of people have been questioning how LLMs, whether it's OpenAI, Perplexity, Anthropic, et cetera, make money beyond just subscription, right? And so a number of them have tested advertising, which is kind of a funny product feature within an LLM interface. It's like, how do you do it? Would it make sense? And I think the news of this week is Perplexity is now starting to test into this. Microsoft actually had done this through Bing AI something and had shut it down. Different people have tried and failed. Google's obviously still figuring things out with Gemini. And so I just wonder what the pod thinks about whether or not advertising within LLMs is going to be a sustainable business model. It is the business model of the internet. And if so, how are people actually going to use it?
I'm sure. So Brit, were you? Yeah. Oh, just go ahead, Sam.
No, after you.
Oh, at our women's conference, the head of Google Search, Liz Reed, got a number of questions from the audience about how does SEO work in AI and LLM? So clearly a huge, huge question. I mean, I don't see why it won't work on at a core level, because if anything, the ability to be a recommended product or service would be very valuable to a brand. But we just don't know how these things are going to scale and be used, and to what degree they are more a variant of the search and link experience than the sort of chatbot experience. I just that is all such an open question. And but there's huge commercial power and intention. So I think there'll definitely be the potential for really impactful ad products.
So the way that Perplexity is integrating it is by, if you have a prompt and you get a response, it will suggest follow-up questions to ask next, brought to you by X, Y, and Z.
No, that won't work. Yeah, that's stupid.
And I'm like, is this really what users are going to click on?
You have to think about this more like social media, I think.
Yes.
The pure intent based, Google style business models are extremely powerful because the user is just quite literally telling you exactly what they're looking for. And then you can sell them an ad that, gives them what they're looking for, and everybody's happy. All the incentives are aligned. That isn't the case always with how people today are using the core, Geminis and the open chat GPTs. You're using it sometimes for something that you're looking for, but other times for things you're trying to understand. And so what's really happening on the back end is that the product, whether it's Perplexity or Gemini or OpenAI, is building a vector of you, right, all the time. They sort of know what you're interested in. A good example of this is over the weekend, my former COO from Path actually pinged me and he said, "Hey, you've got to try this chat GPT query," which was, "Hey, ChatGPT, make a picture of me based on what you know about my life." And it's a really interesting exercise to see what comes back. And what it came back with is, it's a reasonably good picture that is a part of my life, but it's not all of my life, right? And so to me, that's the story of what's going on with advertising on these platforms.
Tell them what the picture was, Dave.
It was like, me and you and the kids on a boat in front of the Golden Gate. And I was like holding like a mystical orb in my hand. And then like in the other hand was like a bunch of business and, charts. But it was all like very mystical and like ideas and stuff. It was very interesting. And that's like, part of my life.
They nailed it. I think that's Dave in a nutshell.
Maybe right now, but in order to deliver good advertising to me, like they need to have a way better understanding of what my vector is and then be able to deliver, a diverse corpus of ads, not dissimilar to what Meta is achieving right now across all of their properties. And so you need a lot more usage. You need a lot more usage and a lot more contexts. And I don't think just guessing using AI is going to be the way that you get there. I think you actually need quite a bit of interaction from the user. And even Sam Altman this week, I think, said, hey, everyone, it's super great. ChatGPT search is now available to everyone. And it's so great. It's even doubled my own engagement with the product, right? And that kind of says everything to you, right? Like they need people interacting with it a lot more for a lot more reasons in order to build a good ad market. It's basically the identical thing we were working on at Facebook.
Well, there was another thing that happened. I thought you were going to go a different direction with this, Dave, but I think that's right. But here's a different take on the same thing, which is I think actually the way I think it's similar to social media is that you need a new ad format that doesn't exist yet.
Well, yeah, but you also need the data to deliver it, right?
Yeah, but just let me finish. So early Facebook, like and original web Facebook, actually you could kind of just jam pretty traditional ads into the rail, right?
Yep.
And make money on that. So you say, like you're searching for some bullshit, and here's like a pretty easy to deliver. Originally standard,
but those weren't very good ads, Sam. It took a long time.
Yeah, and then there was this big debate and big argument, right, that ultimately about bringing ads into feed, which was ultimately really about mobile. What happened was basically you moved into mobile world, all the engagement was shipping to mobile, and all of a sudden the ad units that everyone was used to on the web just didn't fit. Like you couldn't put them there, and so there had to be this new format, the feed ad, which was kind of the big unlock, but basically made advertising much more native to the experience of Facebook. It's a way better format, but it was really contentious, right? It was really contentious at the time to mix advertising.
Across multiple generations of Facebook.
So moving into mobile was like this incredible, it was like a really, really big fight because everyone was like, well, that's for users and this other spaces for advertisers. I think this is the same thing that's going to play out with these chat interfaces, which is you're going to start out with pretty boring, easy to sell-ish ad units that are easy to understand, but really differentiate between effectively what is the content of the experience, right? Which is the chat experience versus like what's some random brought to you by or whatever that's pretty easy to port over and get people to experiment with, but isn't very compelling. And the story of advertising in LLMs is going to be about, okay, how do you actually bring meaningful commerce into the experience in line? And then look, to this day, there's a huge problem that social media companies face where people get really upset about the knowing what's an ad versus what's not an ad, right? And like kind of what the difference is in the ad load. You're gonna have all the same problems you start doing it in LLMs, only worse, right? Because the format is actually is much harder, I think, to do that well and to make that differentiation. So, look, in the fullness of time, will there be ads in LLM driven stuff? Of course there will, right? And will they figure out something? It's fine. It's unclear to me how it will monetize versus things like social media. It's unclear how it will monetize, certainly versus search, where it's either high intent or a lot of engagement. I would argue that with ChatGPT or any of these LLMs, in theory, you should have the opportunity for even more intent, right? Because you're going back and forth. You have more of the context Dave's talking about. In practice, until commerce moves there, it's really not clear that you do, right? So we'll see what happens. And then engagement-wise, like there's a potential future where someone's spending all their time chatting with these imaginary characters. There's so much engagement, you can monetize it. But right now, Instagram, skiing and bikini pics are just way more engaging, right? You're going to spend way more time scrolling that stuff. So I just don't, you're going to have to figure out where that all lands.
Do you think at some point advertisers just like go to GPT and they're like, okay, I want to run a new campaign. Here's my budget. here's a little bit about the new service or product I'm launching. You create the ads and serve them at the right place, right time, right moment.
Of course, that actually is the use.
I think Google already works that way.
Brit, now you're talking our own book and telling everyone to go to brand.ai.
But that literally, that's already happening. And that is like, that's
I know
how
that's happening with other ad I just think like that will happen. Like OpenAI will just have that embedded and Anthropic and like, you know, like, or will you like run this through a different ad tech platform and then
I mean, look, I think what's going to ad tech is always a very hard business, right? For a whole bunch of reasons. There's a reason there's a ton of dead bodies on the ad tech, bandwagon. Look, this is already what companies like Meta are doing. Right? Like this is like, if there is one use case of
Meta
LLMs,
for sure. I'm just wondering how the other LLMs will do it. Like, do they have their own back end that and they'll just be like, just trust us. We'll run it for you and with the right creative.
It depends how powerful they are, right? As platforms. And then it depends kind of how the market dynamics shake out. Advertisers would love in general commodity interfaces where they can say, I don't care. Like I'm running it everywhere.
I don't know that they will though, because I feel like there's such brand like value. They don't want to go outside the bound. Like they want to know exactly what words you're using in the advertise. Like how much will they let these AI platforms just mess around with the creative?
I think it's the future, right? Like it's what we talked about last episode. It's like why Trump won, right? Like the brands willing to sort of just engage in this new emergent content creation world are the ones that are going to win. And they're going to need like to be guided by good AI to be, I mean, that's Brit, like that's quite literally why we created brand.ai.
I understand. I'm just suggesting that if OpenAI is building this on their own and not using brand AI, there have to be boundaries, right? It's like I don't want women in bikinis in my Ford Mustang ad. I don't, whatever it might be. Although that'd probably be a good ad.
This is the story of social media, though. People got more and more comfortable with whatever being wherever, right? It used to be the case that you like,
except for X, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. I think how this all shakes out is like obviously very TBD, but I do think that there's not going to be anything unique about this time around versus previous times, right? And the reality is buyers want standard formats and they want interfaces up the stack where they can optimize just for, the cost of acquisition, the cost of sales. And some of the big platforms will try to own their own infrastructure, and then it's a huge lock-in, right? Like if you can own the advertiser interface, right? It's one of the, you think about why is Meta so powerful? It's as much because they own the buying experience for ads as it is because they own the engagement, right? It's very hard to break once you have it. But I think it'll just play out the way it always plays out in these things. You'll have one or two people who really control it. You'll have aggregators for everyone else. It'll kind of be a mess. A handful of people make money, but ad tech is historically an extremely hard way to make money.
Yeah. Well, it is important to watch and related to the Google antitrust cases, Google and AI, and so on and so forth. So good topic, Brett. So guys, we are almost at time. Should we bring up the PCC item of the day / week here? Pop Culture Corner.
Which is what? The Colorado Buffaloes winning?
This is one I have to admit I'm behind on. Jess, you're going to have to take the lead here in schooling everyone.
To the window? Is it to the window, to the wall?
I've been too busy going blonde. I'm not paying attention.
It's Deion Sanders. It's Deion Sanders getting Coach of the Year.
No, this has to do with something else.
I'm on the New York Times culture section at the moment, and there is an article written by a New York Times culture reporter about the big release just dropped by Mark Zuckerberg and T-Pain, which Mark has recorded an acoustic version of the song Get Low, which is not safe for work, people. And you can stream this under the moniker Z-Pain on Spotify. Mark has posted to all his social channels. It is in honor of his dating anniversary of his wife. So maybe we just go
he wrote it for
everyone
her?
to
He's
give it a listen.
Get Low for Scylla?
He performed
it was playing on their first date and he performed it.
Oh, okay. They have dinner. And
they met at a party.
I know. I'm just saying for like tonight, they're having dinner. It's like happy anniversary. And now.
Guys, it's pretty good.
Do a little performance for you. Really?
I'm just saying. Yeah.
I think it's very creative and funny.
Well, T-Pain's one of the best producers of all time, so that's not hard.
When I didn't know it was playing on their first date, I thought it was really random, but now I get it, so I'm in for it.
I do love that it's on Spotify. I love it on Spotify.
He was never going to put it on Apple. I mean, what's the other option?
I just really hope that Mark makes a ton of money on Spotify streams from this. That would make me really happy, just in the history of the internet.
I feel like Elon and Mark are now so like heavy in pop culture that like Sundar and Tim and others are going to really need to step it up on the pop culture aspect.
Well, that was actually the take. I mean, I don't think the New York Times, the New York Times is no fan of Meta, but this article is worth reading because it it's by their like culture reporter, and it positions it as like, Mark's rebrand. And this is another kind of capstone in his sort of odd but fascinating moments, from his statue to his t-shirt line and so on. And then it kind of ends by like saying now the ball's in, it's in contrast to Elon, who's now obviously going down the politics, and so it sort of jokes that now the ball is in Elon's court to find a song to.
But aren't they both the same thing? It's like in both cases, whether you're in pop culture or Taylor Swift land, or whether you're in politics, they're both just American pop culture of different flavors. And it's all of this stuff is just WWF characters.
Yeah. That's why I think Tim Cook's behind. He needs to get in on this.
Well, it's really something.
No, Tim Cook's just like winning. He's like got the biggest company of all time, and he just doesn't care.
I mean, or you could say Tim Cook and these guys all need to be replaced with influencers. They're gonna the best things, like they're gonna need to find their next up and coming executive who will be chosen based on their Instagram posts.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're doing with the Department of Defense. So
Oh God. It's also interesting. I mean, everyone should listen to the song. It is a very explicit song.
Look on your face.
It is.
It's a classic rap song from the 2000s.
Of course it is, but he's singing it in an acoustic slowed down version. So
with T-Pain auto tune.
But
it's not exactly singing. It's basically full out auto tune.
No, it's
from
pretty
the
good.
window to the walls.
Okay, it's auto tune, whatever it is. And again, people, if it's their cup of tea, you can now stream it all day long on Spotify, and make Mark rich. But
if in the history of the world, if Mark ends up making his fortune on music, that would just be wonderful. Like it's like 2100.
I agree.
It's not going to happen. But the question, it's sort of interesting to me that like people sort of haven't commented on the explicit nature of the song at all, I think.
That's because our entire millennial pop culture, we all grew up with this stuff. It's just normal to us.
I get it. I get it. But remember, like, I mean, Mark was going to, compete in an
This is
MMA
the Yin Yang twins
contest. And there were people who were upset about that. And this to me seems like
But they're identical moves, right? They're identical moves, right? All you have to do is look at Facebook's data set to know that like these types of pop culture moves are what drives engagement, right? Like MMA drives engagement. It just elected the president. Like these types of things. T-Pain is having a huge resurgence in his, producing career. Like these are just looking at Facebook's data set and making choices.
I don't honestly think Mark is looking at it. I think he's just doing what he wants, and that's great.
He just really wanted to record a song with T-Pain.
But look, I also say on the explicitness, it is a very explicit song, but I think if there's some sensitivity, like if you want to analyze it deeply, I think they do a good job of Mark saying not the most explicit parts of the song. So it's all relative. They let T-Pain say the really explicit stuff.
Yeah, his children are going to listen to this one day.
He says some of the explicit stuff. They do a really good job of not screenshotting.
Sweat dripping down my
bleep. Yes. Come on. I don't want our podcast to be. And it's interesting what their pictures of the lyrics and which lyrics. Again, all in the spirit of a lot of fun. But if we're talking about like the internet is very excited about this.
It's awesome. It's a classic internet move.
The New York Times, which hates Mark Zuckerberg, is just like singing his praises as an artist. And so
this is internet culture
that's interesting
finest.
to me. Yeah.
If Mark's not great at internet culture, then we've got a problem,
I was going to say, he is nailing this moment. He really is. And who knows where it will go next. Okay, friends. I think we covered a lot this week, actually. I think we We got in our substance. We gave the people a taste of all the things happening, and I think we should call it. So with that, a huge thank you to our listeners. I'll have you guys know we've got some cool guests lined up for the end of the year. We've got
Jess is looking for her cookies.
For the end of for this episode, can we have them edit in the single, Mark's single, as the outro? And then I just want to get I really want to get like a takedown request from Mark.
Wait, can we get Mark to come do an acoustic version of this on the pod?
Can we get Mark to sing the more or less jingle for the pod? Just like one line.
guys, he's
Just
gonna
one
get
line.
like cover
Just one
band
line.
requests. He's gonna get cover band. No, I don't want that. But
No, that's too weird.
No, it's not. He's in the game now. He's a musician.
I just really desperately want to like get a takedown request from Mark Zuckerberg for using his song in
or for Daniel Eck. It's not one of the two.
from any of them. I just like I want that. I'm gonna frame it.
Good idea. Editors, put that in.
But until next week, folks, enjoy looking at your Bitcoin stock charts. I hope they give you everything you
Stay
want
there.
and need. We'll see you next week on More or Less. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.